The streets of Damascus were tense and quiet, a city once full of life, now in fear of the unknown. Inside the presidential palace, Bashar Al-assad prepared to leave the country he had ruled for years. His power was slipping away, and with only a few loyal guards by his side, he moved quickly. The sound of distant clashes reminded him that his enemies were closing in. Every moment felt like a race against time, and the walls of his authority began to collapse. A convoy of dark vehicles waited quietly in the dark, arranged with the help of his Russian allies. Assad stepped into one of the cars, with his mind clouded by the fear of the rebels. For years, he had governed with force and control, but now he was fleeing his own country. As the convoy sped through the city streets, he could feel the weight of his downfall. The leader who once ruled with an iron grip was now running, unsure of what awaited him. How did it come to this? What will become of a country shattered by years of fighting, loss, and destruction? The Syrian civil war began due to years of strict government control, unfair treatment, and anger among the people. Syria was ruled for more than 40 years by the Assad family, starting with Bashar Al-assad in 1970. He led Syria with an iron fist, punishing his enemies and showing favor to his own Alawite minority, leaving the Sunni majority angry and frustrated. When Hafez died in 2000, his son Bashar took over, promising better leadership. And guess what? He didn't deliver. Instead of bringing change, Bashar kept the same harsh policies. Corruption was everywhere, the economy struggled, and most people had no opportunities to improve their lives. The rural areas were neglected the most, and a terrible drought from 2006 to 2010 made things worse. Farmers lost their land and moved to overcrowded cities, where they faced poverty and hopelessness. Who would have thought Bashar would be worse than his father? Well, as the saying goes, like father, like son. In March 2011, inspired by protests in other countries, Syrians took to the street demanding freedom and justice. The breaking point came in Daraa, when security forces arrested and tortured teenagers for writing anti-government slogans. When their families protested, the authorities responded with bullets, killing several people. This sparked protests across the country, with thousands demanding Bashar's resignation. But really, what leader wouldn't double down after that kind of popularity? Instead of solving the people's problems, Assad's government used violence. Peaceful protests were met with bullets, arrests, and harsh crackdowns. In July 2011, opposition groups began to fight back with weapons, creating the Free Syrian Army. Assad called them terrorists and used even more military force. This marked the point where peaceful protests turned into a deadly civil war. The Syrian civil war soon became one of the most destructive conflicts in recent times, involving many groups with different goals. The events can be understood through the actions of local, regional, and foreign players. Each group fought for its own interests, making the war even more chaotic. It was a conflict where everyone seemed to be pulling in opposite directions, and nobody could agree on anything. By the end of 2011, various opposition groups had formed, including those fighting for democracy and others with Islamist goals. The Free Syrian Army was the most popular group, but its lack of leadership weakened its efforts. Other groups like Jabhat al-Nusra, an Islamist faction, gained strength and caused even more division among the opposition. It's almost as if they were in a contest to see who could make things worse faster. Assad's government responded with widespread destruction, targeting both fighters and ordinary people. Barrel bombs, heavy artillery, and mass arrests became common. Cities like Homs, Aleppo, and Hama were hit the hardest. Assad's plan was simple: destroy anything and anyone in his way. The war got even worse in August 2013, when a sarin gas attack near Damascus killed over 1,000 people. Many blamed Assad's government, though Assad, of course, played the "I didn't do it" card. This disaster made many countries angry, and US President Barack Obama warned that the US might use military force. Well, that threat spiced up the war soup. Russia swooped in with a deal to save the day, convincing Assad to destroy his chemical weapons. Spoiler alert, he didn't really. Later attacks with chlorine proved that Assad's promise wasn't worth much. Other countries' failure to step up just let Assad grow stronger while Syrians paid the price. Meanwhile, the chaos gave extremist groups room to thrive. In 2014, ISIS declared itself in charge and grabbed huge parts of Syria and Iraq. They became infamous for gruesome acts like beheadings and for wrecking historic places like Palmyra. Because, clearly, if you can't win hearts, you just destroy culture. The US and others launched airstrikes to push back ISIS in areas like Raqqa and Deir ez-Zor. Sure, ISIS lost some ground, but their rise only made things messier for those already struggling against Assad. The war became a tug-of-war between powerful countries. Iran and Hezbollah gave Assad weapons and fighters, because why not back a guy everyone hates? Then, Russia jumped in with airstrikes and soldiers in 2015, claiming they were fighting terrorism. What they really did was help Assad take back a lot of land, turning the fight into their own little project. Nothing like a good old-fashioned power grab dressed up as heroism. The United States, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar backed different rebel groups, but their efforts were messy, and weapons often ended up with extremists. Turkey also attacked Kurdish groups in northern Syria, making alliances harder to manage. The war brought huge suffering. Over half of Syria's people, about 13 million, were forced to leave their homes. Many went to nearby countries like Turkey, Lebanon, and Jordan, while others fled to Europe, creating a large migration crisis. Cities like Aleppo, once busy and successful, turned into ruins. In 2016, Assad's forces regained Aleppo, but thousands of people died in the process. Sieges cut off food and medical aid, leaving many to starve or die from illness. The United Nations condemned war crimes from all sides, reporting acts like torture, mass killings, and attacks on hospitals and schools. Even with this evidence, peace talks failed as countries cared more about their own goals than helping the people. By 2018, Assad's forces, with help from Russia and Iran, controlled most main cities again. The rebels, weaker and divided, held only small areas in Idlib and the northeast. Assad claimed victory, but the war left behind destroyed towns and millions of displaced people. The damage was everywhere, and the road to recovery seemed far away. At this point, Assad felt immune to losses. But I guess his immunity didn't hold for long. In late February 2020, the conflict escalated briefly after dozens of Turkish soldiers were killed in an airstrike, and Turkish forces retaliated directly against the Syrian army. The confrontation soon ended, however, after a general ceasefire was negotiated by Turkey and Russia a week later. A new rebel offensive took place in 2024, however, after international support for government forces was considerably weakened. Assistance from Russia was already mitigated by its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in the Russian-Ukraine War. On November 29th, HTS fighters entered Aleppo's city center and forced government forces to withdraw from the city. Russian jets responded the next day with airstrikes against HTS, but HTS managed to extend its advance to Hama within a week. Daraa and Homs were captured on December 7th, effectively isolating Damascus and cutting it off from the bases and ports that would allow the Syrian army to reinforce and resupply Damascus' defenses. Assad's escape reportedly happened under cover of darkness, with help from Russian operatives. Some reports claim he sought refuge in Russia, while others say he fled to Iran. His departure marked the collapse of his rule and over 10 years of war. The war's end left Syria in ruins. Entire cities were destroyed, infrastructure was gone, and the economy was shattered. Assad's downfall serves as proof of an old truth. The higher the rise, the harder the fall.